What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another episode of the Brave and Faithful podcast. I'm your host, Raiden Dionisio, and today I have another podcaster. He's also an active duty Navy. He's currently an instructor right now in San Antonio. I'd like to welcome Phil Fishburn. What's going on,
What's
Phil?
going on? How are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. Hey,
Yeah.
thanks for taking the time to do this.
Thanks for
Um,
having me.
Yeah, no worries. And then, before we get started on, the podcast and things like that, can you just tell us a little bit about your Navy background?
Yeah, so I'm coming up on it'll be 15 years in July. It's I've blinked and it seems like it's just flown by.
Yeah.
And so started early back in '06. Things were thick during the OEF, OIF, so they're from Corps School, boot camp, Corps School, a lot of pipeliners into field med. So they called us like pipeliners, So just
Yeah.
then I went to Bethesda. And then from Bethesda, I went to CLB3 in Hawaii. And from Hawaii, I went back to Bethesda because that's kind of where I met my wife. And we had some roots there, some family. And then from that tour in 2015, we transferred to Camp Pendleton. I did a MEU with CLB 13, and finally I got my sea legs on that. So 10 plus years into my career, I finally got to sail some seas and became a shellback. So that was pretty cool. And now I'm here being an HM instructor here in San Antonio. So that's where I'm at.
That's awesome, man. You weren't really too far behind me. I joined in 2003, and kind of like similar to you, I didn't really see the ship until it was 10 years in. So, but we kind of joined at the same time where, Marine Corps was kind of like the way to go because that's where everything was going on, Iraq and
Yeah.
Afghanistan. So,
Yeah. Uh-huh.
all right. So, like we mentioned earlier, you're at San Antonio right now. You're an instructor. So can you just tell us a little bit about that and like what you do over there?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a funny story because I actually selected my orders to come to Texas, but not really to become an instructor. I have, I, but I have, I selected the other kind of the support staff UIC, and then they were going through my resume, the CMC, and he was like, "Oh, you're a 9502 already. Well, we got to get you on the podium." And I'm just thinking in my head, "Oh, that's not what I came here for."
Hey, before you like our listeners might not know what 9502 is.
Oh yeah,
Can you
sorry.
just explain that?
Yeah, so a 9502, or they've realigned a lot of the NECs, and what basically it's. I went to a 2-week, 3-week course to become a Navy certified instructor,
Right.
and just kind of gives me the check in the box to say I can stand up in front of a bunch of people and I guess speak. I don't know if to this day, I'm many. I walk among giants every day. There's so many great instructors that walk the halls. I just am I guess blessed to say they're my coworkers. But yeah, so I kind of had that under my belt already. So that was just one way ticket into the schoolhouse. And I mean, looking back, 2.5 years later, I was upset in the beginning, but it has been a biggest blessing, I guess you could say, because it got me outside of my comfort zone.
Right.
I wanted to come here and I wanted to chill, and instead I got this challenge to where when I all said and done, I'm gonna have the opportunity to have pushed. It's in the 3,000 corpsman through the schoolhouse. An instructor on the podium for 3 years is usually in the 3,000 mark. So that's something to hang my hat on and look back and say this was the right decision. This was the best decision for me, and that's kind of where I'm at right now.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Kind of just knowing you made that much of an impact on like the future of like, Navy medicine, right?
Right.
How does it feel like, pushing that many students through and
It
then like do you ever like hear back from them, or like when they're in the fleet, or like how's that feel?
So yeah, we kind of have a unwritten rule, I guess you could say. We try to tell them, hey, don't contact us until like 6 months after you're in the fleet. Um, if there's something professionally or mentorship wise that you want to talk about, then sure, reach out. But yeah, a lot do reach back, and again, that's just my rule of thumb. A lot of students have professional mentor type relationships with previous instructors, and that's great. But just me, I want the sailor, the new corpsman, to kind of concentrate on soaking it all in,
Mm.
what the fleet is all about, because I was still, brand new, didn't know what Bethesda had to offer, and I'm 6 months, after they graduate anyways, they forget my name. So they got, are full blown into their primary and collateral duties.
Yeah, yeah. So you kind of touched on it just earlier, and I think it's important that we kind of just go over it real quick. Getting out of your comfort zone, right? A lot of we talk about complacency kills, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, like, what is your advice on, not just corn, but just sailors in general, like just brand new to the Navy? How getting out of that comfort zone.
Right. And it's especially during the times right now where these new accession sailors are challenged from the very beginning of coming through RTC is, challenge yourself, find your why.
Mm.
I have a situation where, it was a career shaping type of scenario where I had an encounter with a superior, and I basically I'll just say it. I was turning in my resignation, and I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. And I kind of took two steps back, talked to a bunch of mentors, and on this routing folder, I have it posted on my desk, and it says, know your why. All right. My why is I'm supposed to be here challenging myself every day. And that's, what we have to kind of basically explain to these sailors is find your why, and it this day and age as sailor, it's okay to ask why in a tactful, professional manner,
Right.
because they need to know that why and the purpose behind things. It's just a different type of generational, I guess you could say, sailor, and we have to adapt to that. So
Yeah, and I mean, it just all goes back to communication as leaders. You know, we will make sure communication that goes, um, it's clear all the way down to from E9 to E1 for
that's
enlisted,
right.
right?
Yeah.
Um, just making sure that they're aware and they're informed, and that they're abreast with what's going on within the
Right.
command.
Because you can give a sailor a simple task, and a lot of the times, our sailors are so disgruntled and they just want to feel that type of purpose of something's behind it.
Right.
And again, like you said, communication, it comes down to communication for everything.
Yeah. So Phil, so you mentioned earlier, 15 years in, about 5 more to go for retirement. Um, so man, what would you say has been like the worst moment or experience, and how were you able to overcome those times?
Um, there's been a lot of good. I can't complain, but I would say, just the whole deployment, being away from your family, that really, um, you know, I've only done the MEU, and that was an experience for me. And trying to kind of like, I guess you could say, mesh with ship's company versus an embarked shipwrighter like myself, um, and just kind of learning through every type of person, character. Not, we're obviously not all going to get along and hang out after work, but it's just the life lessons. It's the good, it's the bad, it's taking with you. But um, I haven't really had a crazy moment. Um, I really hated the helo dunker. That comes to
Oh,
mind.
yeah.
I don't know if your listeners are familiar, but it's when they basically put you in this simulated helicopter and put you underwater. Everybody's like, I loved it. I loved it. Well, I did not care for it, to say the
Right.
least. So, but it's good times. I joined the Navy because I was trying to escape a black hole of a town where you didn't either end up in a ditch or in jail. So I was a late bloomer. Joined at 24 and decided to get out of town and do something with myself. And I'm pretty happy at where I'm at. So
That's awesome. So you mentioned being like ship's crew, and then being uh just a writer, right?
yeah,
How was that like? What was your interactions like with like the corpsmen that were ship's crew, and you
it
being
was
with the
unique.
Marines?
It was unique. I talked a lot to other sailors, and they have very good experiences. It's all again about communication, and I don't think ours was maybe the best
Right.
when it went down between green and blue. Probably some arrogance, between both. Um, but I think if we would have had a little more time together, and it would have been really beneficial. But we had some time where we had to go disembark and go on Djibouti, and but again, I know we've said it over and over on your show, but it comes down to communication. It's not getting the right information can basically, from the most minuscule type of scenario of when you're going to get to do your laundry in medicals,
Yeah.
type of. So
Yeah,
again,
I mean
communication
those little things count, like those little necessities and things
for
like people
sure.
take for granted. Uh,
Yeah.
those count. So, what would you say has been kind of like the most rewarding moment or experience you've had so far in the Navy?
The most rewarding has got to be now. Even though I look back to it, and I mentioned in the beginning of your show, it's just like I didn't come here to do this certain job, but it is really gratifying, and to say that, you know, uh, I'm not ashamed that I guess I didn't want to come here and do it in the first place, but uh, after you push your first class and you're just like, wow, you're just, you can't help but, basically kind of take it all in and be like, I just pushed a class of 86, brand new corpsmen, and they don't always necessarily want to, I guess, be in front of a PowerPoint learning lecture. They want to hear your real life stories, like we're kind of telling right now.
Right.
Those sea stories, if you will, your experiences. That's what they gravitate towards the most, these young sailors. And we try to be just straight up with them, try to tell them like how it is and what the fleet's all about. So it's definitely being an instructor would be the most rewarding so far.
And and I appreciate you for kind of just sharing your initial thoughts when you first got orders there.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, we talked about that earlier, just getting out of your comfort zone, right? There's things, if you're in the Navy, for as long as we have, there's things that not really going to be that fun or enjoyable, but things will have to get done.
Mm-hmm.
And then at the end you do feel some sort of pride and some sort of sense of accomplishment when those things do get done.
For sure.
So I mean, at the end of the day, we all got orders to follow.
Yeah.
And
I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Pride takes over,
right.
and it consumes you, and we do the job, in the end, and it's
Yep.
been very beneficial. So
That's awesome. That's awesome. So all right, so talking about the Navy, and now, so you guys have a podcast as well, LPO Perspective, right?
yep.
How did that all come about? Where did that idea come from? Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. So I'm going to be probably a little long-winded here, but I have to give credit to where credit is due. And a sailor that I had the privilege of working with here as an instructor, He was actually just promoted to chief. So Chief Matthew Footdale, had a program. It was already instilled to where we would basically go over to the students' barracks and
Mm-hmm.
invite them over. And it was like a panel of first classes, to ranging from topics like primary duty, collateral duties, education, sponsorship, the whole sailor and centric type of acronym. So Matt was basically, running this awesome program. And then one day he said, Phil, I think you'd be a great, nominee to kind of take over this program. And I was pretty humbled, and I was like, well, okay. And so we ran with it, and he kind of just was like, I guess you could say, the LPOs Perspective, I guess you could say, my peer mentor with this program.
Right.
And then COVID hit, and that was back in March, and I was, a month went by, and then into May, and I was like, man, we're at a standstill right now. We're not getting our message out to these sailors, because social distancing. What can we do to connect back with these sailors? And one of my colleagues at the podcast, he's also an instructor, AJ Bradford. He had been doing some podcasting through I guess you could say, he has a very avid passion about bow hunting. So he was talking about, how he does this podcast. And I was like, wow, okay, what if we turned it into, a podcast forum, and we just kind of, from the ground up, had, a few sailors in, and it kind of just, made more, headway, and he kind of showed me the ropes, and here we are today, and it's worked, and I've enjoyed it, because there was that time during that COVID period where I was pretty bored. So to kind of talk mentorship, talk all kinds of topics that these sailors are wanting to hear and know, it was fun. And not saying it's not fun anymore. I'm still having fun. And hopefully it has resonated with some of these sailors out there. So that's kind of where the podcast history, comes to fruition. And again, I can't give more, credit to Chief Footdale, HM1 Bradford. Without those guys, this wouldn't have been possible. So kudos to them.
Wow, that's and I appreciate you guys and applaud you guys for that. That's awesome. That's like being innovative, trying to find ways to get to our sailors, right? To give them that mentorship, that guidance that they need. Even with the global pandemic, you guys still were trying to find ways, to get your message across, and you guys did that. You created this podcast, like I said, LPOs Perspective, and man, and you guys are doing it. You guys are getting the message across. So one thing I did want to ask was like, how did the command, or does the command have any input on like your guys' podcast, and how do they feel about that?
So we kind of like don't want to, I guess you say, I don't want to say associate ourselves with the command, but it's just we've kind of gravitated away from it, because just in the off chance of one of maybe myself, who a lot of the times there is a foot in my mouth, says something off key or something. I don't want it to come back on the command and be, but no, we took our program and, hey, did our due diligence, checked with legal and all that good stuff. But we had a lot of First Class Petty Officer Association involvement, but we don't really broadcast, because, to be honest with you, the end goal is to kind of like take this along with us, so we can still communicate like wherever we're at. And because they actually have a great the mentorship program that kind of is, I don't want to say off our coattails here, but HM1 Cooper here, he's him and Chief Moses have come up with they call it a mentor symposium. And that's kind of getting back into the face-to-face type of mentorship type of stuff. But with the podcast, we really are looking to kind of like, what if I go to the West Coast when I PCS, Chief Footdale's on, the East Coast, kind of bringing it all together, if you will. So we don't associate ourselves too much with the command, but it's a great command. Don't get me wrong. So
That's awesome, man. So Phil, what's one thing you want our listeners or viewers to take away from this episode?
I think, one thing I like the listeners to kind of take away from this episode is what we kind of were talking about in the beginning is, I was assuming I was going to have one job or, one type of challenge in front of me. And then really quickly, the rug was, swiped from underneath me, and I was doing another job that maybe I wasn't prepared for. But again, that pride takes over. Challenge yourself, work outside the box. My very good, again, colleague, AJ Bradford, uses this saying, and I love it. It's called, don't drink the Kool-Aid, make the Kool-Aid. Okay. So basically, get in there and have something to do with a process improvement type of tasks, so that's what I would say. And, look for those opportunities to work outside your comfort zone, because it's going to make you a better sailor.
Yeah, it's kind of one of the sayings we have is like, if there's a problem, don't come to me with the problem, come with me with the solution, right?
For sure.
And be part of the solution and not part of the problem.
Yep.
So that's a great input right there.
Yeah.
All right, so Phil, so this is coming up on our second segment of the podcast here. So basically, these are the same 5 questions I asked all my guests.
Okay.
All right, so first question here: what's one hobby you enjoy?
One hobby I enjoy. Well, I got 2 crazy Tasmanian devils, 3 and 9. So if they're put down for the count early enough, I'll hop on some Call of Duty, and I'm pretty good avid video gamer. But if it's not video games, it's spending time with my family or playing golf. So
You got 2 boys?
I do, 2 boys.
Yeah, I got a girl and another girl on the way.
Oh, congrats, man!
Months, so yeah,
congrats.
The dad life.
It's a hell of a ride. It is.
Yeah.
It is so. And it's funny, when you're teaching, the vast majority of your students are between the demographics of 18 and 23 years old. They're not in that parenthood yet, and you're like, hey, it's going to come whether you like it one day or not. And
yeah,
and so we are, I'm the old man of the division, so I'm always cracking some dad jokes. So
All right, so second question here: if you had to choose one person, dead or living, to hang out with for one day, who would it be and why?
It's a good, probably not the most common answer, or people want to hear about maybe a celebrity or something. For me, it's my grandfather. It was just, he passed away during the time I was in the Navy, and I'm sure a lot of shipmates have this same type of situation where a loved one passes away. I was in Bethesda, he was in Yuma, Arizona, and you just wish you could have just one more day with that, loved one, and he'd be the one I'd want to spend the time with. But, Navy has definitely taught me in that unfortunately, you're not going to always be around when things go awry with loved ones passing away, et cetera. So.
Yeah. And that's a great point. Hopefully, your second family in the Navy are there for you to, if you ever need anything.
Heck yes.
All right, so next question here, Phil. Recommend a book for our audience to read.
Oh, there's so many. And me and my good buddy HM1 Cooper are always talking about, but the book I'm reading now is Turn the Ship Around. And that is an amazing book about a officer who's submariner, and basically kind of turns around the ship's morale and momentum. But another book I have right in front of me. It's called Ego is the Enemy by
Oh,
Ryan Holiday.
yeah.
My mentor, Senior Chief Marne, basically suggested this book, and I've probably been slacking a little bit with that one. But yep, Turn the Ship Around and Ego is the Enemy are two books that I would definitely suggest.
Yeah, Ryan Holiday, he's got several books. Yeah, I think that's the one I read when I was on deployment last year. It's a great read
Awesome.
if you're into stoicism and things like that.
Yep.
All right, so next question. What's your favorite quote and why?
I think I mentioned it already. I stole HM1 Bradford, AJ Bradford's thunder earlier, but no, it's don't drink the Kool-Aid, make the Kool-Aid. And basically
Yeah.
that's instilling, and we touched on it, is being part of something. Be part of something bigger than yourself. If there's something that you see is wrong, or a process type of improvement you can do, then grab onto that task and don't let go, and be a solution, a problem solver, and instead of creating the problem and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's a great quote, man. I'm taking note of that. All right, so last question here, Phil. Where do you see yourself in a year, 5 years, or even 10 years from now?
Well, in a year, I'm in the midst of choosing orders
Yeah,
right
your
now.
orders.
Third look, probably along with a lot of other sailors out there in the Navy. I think this COVID thing has messed some PCS type stuff up, but in that regard, I'm just being patient. I'm not gonna, freak out. I'm just gonna basically how the cookies crumble. And I'm not really big on, oh, I gotta be or I gotta be in California, or I have to be at a certain place. I've loved the adventure the Navy's given me, and different stops every 3 years. So in 5 years, oh, I'm unlacing the boots for the final time. And you think about it, and it's like I gotta, really start thinking about it, because they always say, you should be looking, past the horizon when 5 years to go comes up.
Yeah.
Start working on, the rest of my bachelor's, stuff like that. So, and then 10 years, hopefully a master's degree somewhere, working for a post office, being a Walmart greeter, being a golf starter. I don't know, but hopefully just paying it forward, whether it's still podcasting, talking about my experiences, but you know, 1, 5, 10 years from now, I just want to be, thought of as somebody that has helped a sailor along the way. Even if I just reached one sailor, then I've done my job.
Yep. And I mean, that's it right there. If just change at least one person's life, one sailor's life, that's satisfying enough that you made a difference, right?
Yeah.
So and best of luck to you in choosing your orders. Wherever you may go, I'm sure you'll make an impact, and you'll do great things wherever you go. As far as retirement, man, I'm like almost there. 2.5 years for me till I hit
Okay.
retirement. So yeah, just one day at a time. Just keep moving forward. Um,
Always.
and again, Phil, I appreciate you for being on the podcast. Anything else you want to kind of just promote, or I know final thoughts?
Yeah, you
Final
can.
things you want to share?
You can find us on Apple or Spotify's podcast, LPOs Perspective, LPO apostrophe S Perspective. We're also on the Hip Channel Instagram page, so look us up. Having fun on there, and trying to connect with our young sailors with these memes that are going around every day. So no, yeah, I appreciate you having me on. It's not just me; it's a team effort. From my network of awesome. I can't reiterate. I walk amongst giants here every day in San Antonio, with my peer network of first class petty officers. They've made some incredible podcasts with me, and I want to emphasize the team effort. So
Well, I appreciate you guys, and I think speak for the sailors that have been listening, and gotten some great mentorship and guidance. Thank you all for putting the time and effort that you guys are doing out there.
Oh, well, thank you.
All right, Phil. So, guys, make sure you check out the Instagram channel, the podcast, LPOs Perspective. And then till then, we'll see y'all soon.